Reimagining of NOSFERATU directed by Robert Eggers. What could go wrong? Well, it turns out, not much. Ever since it was announced that Robert Eggers would be doing NOSFERATU, I was in. And let's be honest, it's always going to be a feat and a tall task matching the likes of F.W. Murnau and Werner Herzog. And Francis Ford Coppola to a certain extent as well. You know, these visual masterminds who've given so much to the medium. But I have said for a long time that if they were going to make another contemporary reimagining of NOSFERATU, Eggers is the guy to do just that. And I was right. And that's not just because I am a Robert Eggers fanboy at heart, as I think his previous works have been brilliant, especially The Witch and The Lighthouse, and even The Northman to a certain extent, a big studio, higher budget than previously worked with, had so much to offer in the way of producing Robert Eggers' vision and imagery. And I thought that his experience in dealing with classic folklore tales, for example in The Witch, dealing with the occult would be he'd be a perfect guy to take on a film of NOSFERATU and try and bring the vampire to its original mythology, to its original fable, really try and take it to its macabre beginnings, as opposed to the many modernized vampire projects we get now. There aren't really many great vampire dark movies like this anymore. So it's easy to see why, since this was announced, I've been chomping at the bit like Count Orlok to see this film, and it's been something I've been really anticipating. When I sat down in the cinema to see this yesterday, I knew my life was about to change. No, but seriously, I was very excited. Without going into too much spoilers, which I won't do today, as I realise that it's got a long time before it comes out and gets that wide release here in the UK. Doesn't come out for another 3 weeks in the US. I believe it comes out on Christmas Day itself. But even the opening sequence to this, I was frozen. So uncomfortable in the best possible way. Everyone fell silent, as they should be. It begins with pure darkness, terror and fear, and really manages to remain and keep that atmosphere throughout. If anything, the film itself is actually scarier than I imagined, scarier than the previous works. Unadulterated gothic terror and a haunting atmosphere that lingers, itching its way into your skin is kind of the best way to describe it. Now, honestly, I was initially disappointed when we got the news that Anya Taylor-Joy had dropped out of the project and Lily Rose Depp had been cast in her place. And I was very much wrong in doing so. Lily Rose Depp manages to convey the most scorching and gnawing sense of fear when she is confronted with the predation of the Count. Managing to really make every scene with her in feel so singular and breathe life into the role and actually make it her own, which is a tall task, and especially when you see the film and what she has to go through to achieve that, it's a really good achievement and maybe a career-defining work for her so far. Bill Skarsgård taking on a new visual imagining of the Count also. Bill Skarsgård, known for being one of the most reputable and convincing and fun character actors of the last decade, I would say. And because he makes so well use of his unflinching terror when on screen, every moment throughout this film, the Count's presence is felt, even in the moments when he isn't on screen. A foul, ever-grossing presence with no rest. Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Nicholas Hoult also bring great stuff to their respective roles, and especially Willem Dafoe, who later on in the film, when he comes into the fray, you can really see he understands the sillier nature of the original material and really plays up to that and actually gets a lot of laughs as well. This film is forbiddingly produced and saturated with traditional painting-like horror cinematography. Truly elegant and gothic visuals. Attempting to match with the original Nosferatu, Nosferatu the Vampire, and even Bram Stoker's Dracula, as you'll see in a few visual homages, is a feat tough to match But Eggers manages to do more than just hold his own, and manages to actually balance the act of producing visual homages that show the influence of great and past works, while also bringing a new vision visually to the film. This is a tale of the haunting of purity that is so wonderfully coupled with, as I mentioned earlier, a real vision and idea of bringing the concept and mythos of the vampire to its folklore beginnings. A statement piece, perfectly addressing the staple vampire lore and what we know and love about it and the haunting effects, while perfectly pushing the melodramatic tones of previous works. This is full-blown gothic melodrama that thrives off its one moment icky nature and another its seductive and alluring nature, really capturing that of the original works and capturing that we have seen in Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula as well. Grotesque in ways that I didn't even expect myself, so much so that it got a physical reaction from people I was sat around. Maybe not to the point you're hearing about online, because as we know, everything tends to be blown over through original screenings and receptions and reactions, but this is a messed up film. It's one for the freaks, and that's why we love it. And while the beats of course remain, there is something so refreshing feeling about the way in which Robert Eggers handles Lily Rose Depp's character specifically. Her seemingly endless fight to withdraw from her other self and the dangers that the Count possesses. Every moment in the final act when he is on his way is felt. The film is lively, it feels lived in, it balances the backgrounds while also having that meta humour to offer, and what could maybe be argued as Eggers' most accessible film so far could simultaneously be argued as his biggest feat to date. Much will and has been said about the shared characteristics between this and Bram Stoker's Dracula, and of course the other Nosferatus. So much to the point that I can actually see many people not entirely vibing with this because of the ways it draws from other works. At the end of the day, this is a balancing act that I personally think Eggers did exceedingly well, but I can also see and understand the other side of it. In a case like this, it's almost lose if you do, lose if you don't, because it's unavoidable that he would have to showcase the inspiration from other works, but I think he really manages to pour his own vision into it, so it gets, we get the best of both worlds, which I think is fine. But as expected, this was a film made for me, for sure. I absolutely loved it. I think it's one of the best and most impressive works of the year so far, and I will finish on this one note. If you don't see this on the best cinema screen you possibly can, you, my friend, are doing yourself a disservice.